49er faithful, 49er fan, 49er gang. This is your boy Niner Gang Podcast back in the building. So definitely hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the post notifications so that I keep you up to date on any and everything San Francisco 49ers. That being said, let's get right on into it. Matt Moses, what's happening with you, man? Um, so this for me is just a little recap of the Shanahan and Lynch era along with Jed York. I know people who know me and who watch my channel know how critical I have been of the job that all three of them have done. And this is just a little recap of the first couple of years, and then we'll have another one that'll recap, the more recent years. But this is going to be the first couple of years based on what they've done so far in those first couple of years, all the way up to 2021. So from 2017 to 2021. We'll talk about those years. We'll talk about the records. We'll talk about the players that they brought in, and the good, the bad, and the ugly, basically, of the situation that we kind of find ourselves in. We're coming off a losing season. We did not make the playoffs. Forgive me about the noise outside. You know how it is. Landscaping does not care about time, and plus it's late enough for them to be out there. So, but it's just a recap. Just kind of letting everybody know, like, hey, these are the things that have been done for that time frame. So with that being said, let's get right on into it, man. So we'll talk about a few things. We'll kind of go over some stuff. So in the beginning, Jed York brings in John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They're together, joined at the hip, so to speak, to basically say, hey, these are the new guys. We're bringing them in. We're going to make sure that we get these dudes are going to take us to the promised land, so to speak. Jed York has had a very tumultuous time as the owner of the 49ers. Hasn't brought us any Super Bowls. He's gotten, to three and lost all three. I know we can't hold the owner technically accountable for it, but he's the guy running things. And he brings in the guys that, do the things. So that winds up on his record. That's on his books. Just as, a quarterback may not be the best quarterback in the world, but hey, if he's there and he's on the field, he gets credit for the win. It's just how it works. He's brought us three Super Bowl losses, few NFC Championship appearances, but for the most part, he hasn't necessarily been the best owner in terms of bringing us as fans that long-awaited sixth Lombardi to put into the trophy case. His predecessor, Eddie DeBartolo, gave us 5 and never lost the Super Bowl. So, and that was his uncle. We all know what happened with Eddie D. He had to sell the team, things of that nature. There was a lot going on in that situation. But either way, these are the things that went on. These are the things that happened. So, we kind of got to roll with it and, deal with, things that may come. But let's definitely get started. So, we'll just talk about the draft picks, the free agent signings, and then we'll go into, an explanation of these guys. It's definitely a little bit different. So the first year with Kyle, John, and Jed, we go 6-10 with the biggest controversy being us letting Kaepernick go and wait until we are a team that sets a record for the most losses in the regular season by 3 points. We are 0-9 with Brian Hoyer as the starter. He brought him in as a bridge quarterback. We turn to C.J. Beathard versus the Giants and squeeze out a win at that point, waiting on Kirk Cousins fails because he was with the Vikings. He didn't get a chance to study into the QBs in the draft at that time. But had enough time to check out C.J. Beathard, and these are Kyle's own words. He saw something in him. Not sure what you saw in C.J. Beathard, sir, but there were 2 other quarterbacks in that draft named Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Now, we all know what's going on with Deshaun, and that's unfortunate. But Mr. Mahomes is possibly headed toward his 4th Super Bowl win and hasn't missed an AFC championship since he started. So, just saying, those were the other 2 quarterbacks in that draft that could have meant something to this franchise, but C.J. Beathard was your choice. Okay. So we're back at it. You know, right, great choice of QBs, all the QBs in the draft. And we had the number 2 pick, but he saw something in CJ. So we pick up Jimmy G, rip off 5 wins at the end of the season, and we go 6-10. Jimmy beats a couple of playoff teams, which is understandable. Those things do happen because, those guys can, help you out. So the next year rolls around and Kyle has his first encounter with the big bad wolves known as Reed, Spags, and Mahomes. Jimmy thinks he's a damn running back, tears his ACL, and seasons automatically shift from there on out. We go 4-12 between Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. So after 2 seasons, the man is 10-22 as a head coach. Not a great start at all. Our only wins that year were against Detroit, Seattle, Oakland, and Denver. And we all know how the Oakland game went. That was Nick Mullins' coming out party. He got a call from Brett Favre and all kinds of stuff, Basically, he had a fantastic game, but, it was against the Raiders, and the Raiders are trash. We all know this to be true. So 2019 rolls around, and we get the pick that everyone thought we would get, Nick Bosa. Sorry, skipped a year. Got to go back. It was 2017, 2018. Let's see here. Yep, no, we're right. So let me see here. Yep. Making sure I'm right on my notes. So 2019 rolls around. We get the pick that everyone thought we would get, Nick Bosa. We signed a few free agents, rip off 8 straight wins to start the season. Kyle's best start ever, by the way. 13-3, go to the Super Bowl versus none other than the trio of Mahomes, Reed, and Spags. We lose the Super Bowl for a few reasons, but mainly due to us running our way into the Super Bowl and then trusting Jimmy G as, to throw the ball in the Super Bowl. Like that whole playoff run that we had in 2019, we literally ran in. It was Tevin Coleman or Raheem Mostert. And Raheem Mostert technically ran all over the Green Bay Packers by his damn self to be able to tell you what was going on. He basically said, hey, look, man, I'm about to take us into the Super Bowl, and that was the case. So it's a little bit different, but kind of is what it is. We move on. But, we start trusting Jimmy G in the Super Bowl. It just didn't make any damn sense. We got comfortable with our lead against Mahomes, who in that year was getting beat every playoff game, found a way to come back in all of them. Jimmy overthrows Emmanuel Sanders and a few questionable calls by the refs, but you can't give them that opportunity. You got to make it so the refs can't do anything about it. You can't put the game in the hands of the refs, period, at all, ever. You must take control of that so that they can't impact it in any way. So now at this point, Kyle is 23-25 as a head coach. Just under 500 in the first, few years of his head coaching career. 2020 comes around. That's the COVID year. We'd all love to forget, we set a new record for the most money on our cap being injured and on the bench in the majority of that year. This is the year McKinnon decides to be available and healthy. Before that, he was old, tired legs McKinnon. Also the only year we got anything from Jason Verrett, which sucks because it didn't matter. We had nothing to play for. We went 6-10 to now put Kyle at 29-35 for his head coaching career. One thing to point out is that since this regime took over, we have consistently been in the top 10 for most injured team in the league every year. That's on all 3 of them for not having the right training staff in place. Hell, the first year they got here outside of Jed, obviously, the training staff they brought in had expertise in hockey. Which has nothing to do with football outside of contact, but those sports are way different, just didn't make any sense. So 2021 comes around and we jump in the draft and trade with Miami, go and get our quarterback of the future, Trey Lance. We start the season 2-4, doesn't look good, but the rest of the season we turned up, put out a 10-7 season and sneak into the playoffs and lose to the Rams in the NFC Championship games. That was marred by controversy on why we lost the game. Was it Tart not catching the interception, bad O-line play, having to trust Jimmy late in the game when he always failed us. Lance played a few games, was injured, some of the season, but sat most of it due to Kyle and John redshirting the number 3 overall pick. showed me that they never wanted him, and they kept Jimmy around, reworking his contract to lower the cap hit. Lance's 2 wins on the season helped us get into the playoffs, and he threw our first touchdown of the year. But by the way he was treated, they never wanted Lance, and Kyle has a preference to QB and is white. So just keeping it a buck. So we wasted all those picks on the QB they never gave a fair shot to, in my eyes. I know a lot of people feel like he had a fair shot. It's just a turn of bad luck. It is what it is. I get it. That's fine. That's your opinion. My opinion differs from yours. That's just how the world works. So we wasted all those picks on the QB they never gave a fair shot to, in my eyes, and now he's a backup for the Cowboys, and all we got for him was a 4th-round pick. So at this point, Kyle is now 39-42, still under 500 by 3 games, has lost the Super Bowl appearance. He has an NFC Championship win and an NFC Championship loss. Playoff record at this point is 4-2. So let's look at it as a whole. We have a head coach who is 39-42 in the regular season, 4-2 in the playoffs, and basically 3-2 on his first, 2-2 in his first few seasons as a head coach. Lynch and Kyle must have a soft spot for injury-prone players and a soft spot for any of his Stanford alumni, i.e. John Lynch, obviously, because that's where he played. He's made some mistakes along with Kyle in the draft, and he has had some big splashes finding diamonds in the rough in the late rounds. We'll take a look at that run he had as well. We will include the free agent signings, and let's see here, as well as the draft picks to see hits and misses. The first year, Lynch only hit on 2 draft picks, which was Kittle on the offensive side and DJ Jones on the defensive side. Everything in that draft was bad. Everything else in that draft was bad. So if you look at it from, the draft picks of 2017, first round, we got 2 guys. We got Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. Both of them failed. We were told not to draft Solomon Thomas by our scouting team. We decided to neglect him, still draft him, and he did nothing. We drafted Reuben Foster, and he couldn't keep his mind off his woman and all the domestic violence issues that they had from both ways, both sides of the coin. Her hitting him hitting her. Like, it was just dismal. And the man just, Reuben Foster's career never sparked to be nothing. We drafted Akello Witherspoon, a man with every tool you could think of to be a perfect cornerback in the league. But the minute you get inside his head, or the minute he gets beat, he turns into trash. We drafted C.J. Beathard, who is now a backup in Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken. Joe Williams, Kyle banged the table for this guy. He played, I believe, at Utah. He quit on his team at Utah, and this was a known thing. And Kyle banged the table for us to draft him. Then he quit on us. I'm just saying, you got there are signs, people. If there are signs right there in your face, you got to be honest. You got to believe them. You got to say, you know what, this is what it is, and I'm not wasting my time. And then Trent Taylor, nothing. Peter Tamparodu, nothing. Adrian Colbert, nothing. And the reason I say this is because I'm looking at the impact that these players consistently had over years for our team and what they've done. So those guys, unfortunately, didn't do much of anything when it came down to those drafts. Then in 2018, he had on another 2, in the first round. He had Mike McGlinchey. We all know who Mike McGlinchey is. Great run blocker, shitty pass blocker. But he was serviceable for the time that he was here and wound up getting himself paid. He's now in Denver because we didn't want to pay him. So that's the case. Then we had Fred Warner in the third. We found our linebacker, all-pro Fred, definitely a guy that if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's definitely headed to the Hall of Fame. Would love to get him a Super Bowl ring to go along with his fantastic career that he's had. We didn't know Fred was going to be that guy, but hey, we thrust him into the spotlight because, of course, the Reuben Foster experiment didn't work, because that's what we anticipated for Reuben Foster, was for him to technically be what Fred currently is. But, I digress. So basically, when it comes down to that, we go into, the other picks of 2018, and let's see what we got for 2018 for the other guys that were picked. So Dante Pettis, Mr. Meow Meow guy, the cat guy, just a worthless player, man. He looked promising a couple of times. He had himself, a little bit of moments in the return game, but he just never panned out, man. He was too soft, and he was just too much of a chump. You know what I mean? So that's the unfortunate situation when it comes down to it. And then you go ahead and you take a look at the other guys that we drafted: Tarvarius Moore and Kentavious Street. Never worked out. Spent most of his time injured. DJ Reed. He's kind of made himself a name for himself in the league. He's been doing a little bit here and there. You know, he's not, balling out by any stretch of the imagination, but he's been doing a little bit of something, making a small bit of noise in the league, not much. But Marcel Harris, worthless. Julian Taylor, worthless. Richie James, worthless. So then we shift on over to 2019 and take a look at that. And basically, let me see where we at. 2019, we all know we hit big on Bosa. Then we got Debo, and then we got Mitch Wisnowski, and we got Dre Greenlaw. So, that was definitely a nice little bit. We got those dudes, and that was definitely great, man. But, Jalen Hurd had a promising preseason game versus the Cowboys. After that, nothing else. Man spent the rest of his time sitting on the injury list. Back was all messed up, couldn't do anything. Then we had Caden Smith, and I think we wound up trading him to the Giants at some point. Justin School, he was here for a little bit, but never worked out. Tim Harris, just nothing. So, more guys just didn't do much of anything, unfortunately. Then we go to 2020, and we get Javon Kinlaw after we stupidly decided to trade DeForest Buckner to the Colts because we didn't want to pay him, and we kept Eric Armstead. Now, mind you, DeForest Buckner was the one actually producing sacks and really producing the pressures and doing things. Armstead was kind of along for the ride, and it's no disrespect to the man, but I'm sorry, he doesn't have that big impact that everybody thinks he has. I don't care about pressures and all that stuff. Are you actually getting to the quarterback? Are you actually sacking the quarterback? What are we really doing? Like, what's your true impact? Because people will give you pressures all day and give you all these other little weird numbers and weird analytics. But at the end of the day, your sole job is to be able to stop the run, disrupt the quarterback when they're trying to pass, and sack the quarterback. That's all you need to be doing. And he couldn't do that. I'm sorry. It's just things that happen, and it is what it is. So we get Javon Kinlaw, which was a waste. And then the only people that we got in that draft that meant anything were two receivers, and that was Brandon Ayuk and Juwan motherfucking Jennings. Those are my guys. You got to love that. McKivitz is a better left tackle than he is a right tackle. And, it kind of is what it is. He didn't really have an impact. He's been here. He's playing right tackle for us right now, but that doesn't really mean much of anything. You know how this works. So in 2020, the other guys that we picked were Charlie Warner, and that's it. I named everybody else, and Charlie Warner was an okay blocker, okay passer, okay pass catcher, but he didn't really do anything. It's just these things happen, and it's just not nothing that we can really control. It just kind of is what it is on that one. So then we come to 2021. We trade a host of picks for Trey Lance. We get Aaron Banks in the second round and redshirt him, mainly because Laken Tomlinson is there. So we're not going to put him on the field. We get Diamado Lenore, Tyler Noah Hufunga, and we get an honorable mention in Elijah Mitchell. The reason I say honorable mention in Mitchell is because he did have that 1 year where he played very well. But other than that, he's been injured. He's been consistently injured. He was injured this year. And it's like, how the hell? Like, dude can't never get his knees right, pause. So it kind of is what it is with Elijah Mitchell. But, for us to get Aaron Banks, who's played admirably, who's spent most of his career alongside Trent Williams. But he's done a pretty good job at left guard. Once again, when I'm talking about, Diamado Lenore, he's just shown up and shown out, got himself a nice big contract. I don't know, Funga, gotta love him, gotta love that Tongan. And then, like I said, I give the honorable mention to Elijah Mitchell for that 1 year that he had. But other than that, and then you look at the rest of the guys in the 2021 draft, and Ambry Thomas, he had those 2 games where we thought something might come of it. He looked all right in the playoffs, and then next thing you know, just sputtered out and never recovered. I don't know where he is now. I think he's on somebody's team, but I don't think he's active. Jalen Moore, he's played admirably this year, left tackle, but you don't really know what Jalen Moore is or where he's going to be. And at this point, because of the uncertainty of us possibly bringing back Trent Williams, we have to figure out whether Trent Williams is going to be here, gone, and then we're going to have to find a replacement. There's a lot that goes on in that. So the other guys that we had in that draft, yeah, everybody else I named, but that's a nice little hit on those picks in that specific draft, with all of the things that came along with it. You know what I'm saying? So to this point, John Lynch has drafted 40 players in total and hit on 12 out of the 40. So he hit on 30% of his draft picks, which is actually not bad. We all know how the draft works. It's a crapshoot. You don't necessarily know if these players are going to work out. You're banking on what they did in college to be able to translate into the NFL and for them to be able to be impact players on a consistent basis. So you have to you have to be able to try that, see what's going on, and see what's happening. So that those are just the draft picks, for those first couple of years, as I said, in 2017 to 2021. And then let's talk about the free agency moves, because we've had a lot of free agency moves. And let's see who made an impact and who just got paid to do nothing, because a lot of these guys came to the team and just really didn't. They either didn't work out, they didn't make the squad for whatever reason. It is what it is. So 2017, the only impact players that we really signed were Juice and Robbie Gold. And that's 17 free agents, and only 2 really made an impact. And if you want to know the other free agents, I'll tell you who they were, because that's where we're going to go. So we had signed Brian Hoyer, Matt Barkley, Tim Hightower, Pierre Garcon, Marquise Goodwin, Aldrick Robinson, Logan Paulson, Jeremy Zuta, Tim Barnes, Elvis Dumerville, Dakota Watson, Malcolm Smith, Brock Coyle, Don Jones, and then, of course, we traded for Jimmy Garoppolo right after I believe, right when we played the Giants game, because Jimmy was still learning. But they initially just threw him in there because I think our first win of the season that year was against the Giants. And that was C.J. Beathard who led us to that W, because Brian Hoyer is fucking garbage. But I digress. So all of those other players never really did much of anything for the Niners, just when you look at it. So then you go into 2018, we've got Stephen Dunbar, Ross Dwelly, Jack Hennigan, Alan Knott, Jamar McGloster, Niall Scott, Terrell Williams, Corey Griffin, Tarvarius McFadden, Emmanuel Mosley, Najee Torn, Coleman Shelton, and Jeff Wilson. Now, out of all those names, I can tell you right now, if you're a real Niner fan, you know who Ross Dwelly is. You know who Jeff Wilson Jr. is. You know who Emmanuel Mosley was, because he was there with us for a little bit, and I think he wound up going to Detroit and, playing there and doing very well, because we let him go because we didn't want to pay him. And that's about it. Everybody else there you don't know outside of those 3 names, and they mean much of nothing. And that's just the truth of it. Certain things, when you take a look at it, that's how it works. Emmanuel Mosley, Weston Richburg, we re-signed Jimmy Garoppolo to that big contract. We got Tart, we got Uncle Sherm, Cassius Marsh. You know what I'm saying? Like, I loved his sack celebration, the little karate kick, Jeff Wilson Jr. So we had some serious people there that, it kind of worked out, you know what I mean? And those are just the guys, you know what I'm saying? You have all those dudes. Another person he brought in, Mike Person. Mike Person was you know what I'm saying? We had pulled up Eric Armstead's 5th-year option. We had just gotten a litany of players, and the only ones that really made an impact are the guys that I stated. You know what I mean? So 2019, you wind up having let's see, you have 1, 2, 3. So seven picks, 7 free agents come in. You got Quan Alexander. You got Daniel Brunskill. We get Tevin Coleman. We get D Ford. We get Jason Barrett. We get David Mayo. We get Jordan Matthews. And only people that really make, Quan and D Ford kind of did their thing for that year. And then after that, neither one of them could stay healthy. I give Quan a little bit of an edge on D Ford. The reason being is because Quan at least would try. Quan would do everything he could to get back on the field. D Ford was just a broken player. We knew that when we picked him up when he came from Kansas City because he had to came off of an 11-sack season. So we picked him up, paid him all that money, and we never got shit for it. That's just how it works. So it's very unfortunate, but it kind of is what it is on that one. Tevin Coleman came in, played admirably for us, did some good things, helped us get into the Super Bowl that year. He was the main workhorse versus the Vikings in the playoffs when we beat Kirk Cousins. And then in the NFC Championship game, we wound up, having Raheem Mostert. He was the hot hand, and he had over 200 yards and rushing and 4 TDs, and he ran us into the Super Bowl that year. But the other guys, Daniel Brunskill, he was all right. He did okay. He owned Aaron Donald, which is, he's Aaron Donald's daddy. Always will be, even though Aaron Donald has retired. Still, that's one guy he just could not get past. And it's funny because you would see Brunskill and you would be like, bro, you suck against a lot of players that are way, way worse than Aaron Donald. Like, I'm talking nowhere near on his level, not even mentally on his caliber of player. And we couldn't do anything against him, but against one of the best defensive linemen ever, you found a way to hold that dude down. So kind of is what it is. Once again, D Ford, one good year. After that, worthless, waste of space, waste of money, and wouldn't retire and do us a solid. But decided to keep getting his bread, and I think we finally have him off the books. Thank God, because it was a waste of time paying a guy who just never did anything. You had 1 year, and after that, you did nothing else. Jason Verrett spent all his time on the bench. David Mayo, who? Exactly. Jordan Matthews, trash. Hot garbage. I think they even tried to move Jordan Matthews to tight end for a bit, and that definitely didn't work out. So then you slide over to 2020, and you get Travis Benjamin, Tom Compton, another guy that Kyle knows, helping out the homie. We get Kerry Hyder and Joe Walker. We all know what happened in the 2020 year. We don't even want to talk about it. Let's just forget it. The only person there that even had any kind of an impact was Kerry Hyder. Everybody else did much of nothing. Compton was but he was actually pretty bad. Then you go to 2021. And we have Trent Williams, Samson Ebukam. We re-signed Juice and Jason Verrett. The Shark is back. K'Wan Williams. Then we had DJ Jones, Zach Kerr, Alex Mack, Trent Sherfield, Dante Johnson. The guy that would never go away. Jaquaski Tarr, Tavon Wilson, Jordan Willis, Muhammad Sanu, Nathan Jerry, and Nate Sutfeld. And out of all those dudes, of course, Trent is the big signing, the big impact player that we needed. You gotta love that one. Samson Ebukam, he played admirably for us for a few years. He did all right. Re-signing Juice was cool because you keep, your Swiss Army knife at fullback. Although to that point, it was just a little frustrating because I didn't see Kyle using him in the manner that we would like. Because Juice is a versatile player. Juice can run. Juice can catch the ball. He really can do all of the things that they say he can do. Kyle just has to deploy him in that manner to be able to make him a true threat. Because other than that, when you see Juice going out to line up, you're like, it's just him. He's not there. I got to throw him the ball. So, and teams don't respect it. So when you make teams respect it, it makes it better. So let's see. You got to love K'Wan Williams, the Shark. You got to love him. DJ Jones, got to love it. Alex Mack did, admirably at center for a little bit. But once again, another guy he knew from where? Atlanta. Kyle helping out the homie, as he always does. And the rest of those guys just didn't do much of anything. We just didn't have any real impact from, the rest of those dudes when it came down to it. So when you take a look at it, to this point, he had signed 75 free agents and hit on about 12 of them, which is about 16%. So that tells me that John Lynch ain't necessarily the best in free agency. He does a little better in the draft, but free agency, we made some bad decisions. Now, hear me out. I know free agency in the draft can be a crapshoot. I get it. No one hits on every draft pick. But the glaring issue with a lot of these picks and free agents is they're either guys that Kyle knows, i.e. helping out the homie, or someone he believes in and they turn out to be garbage. Also, John having a soft spot for injury-prone players and helping out the Stanford alumni. So in the first few years, we have a Super Bowl appearance and NFC Championship loss. Jed says it's not good enough for me. 6 more years. He says that is good enough for me. Gives them their contract 6 more years for both of them. Now, I don't want Jed thinking he escapes blame because you're the owner of the team. If you're paying attention, like we, the fans, do, you've got to intervene at some point and say, hey guys, no more helping out the homie, and we need some better choices in free agency. If they have an injury history, maybe we shouldn't draft them or pick them up in free agency. Kyle, stop helping out the homie. Just because you know a guy doesn't mean he's a fit for this team. I'm not stating to be Jerry Jones by any stretch of the imagination, but also don't sit idle and see things happening and do nothing either. He brought us, since taking over, 3 Super Bowl losses. And we've had up and down seasons with every head coach he's hired, including Kyle. Hell, the only one who finished above 500 is Jim Harbaugh. So it begs the question, does York care about winning a Super Bowl or money flowing in? I say it's money. Some fans think he does. I have no, how, I have no clue. When he's shown a propensity for bad choices of words, he basically says, initially, we're here to hang Super Bowl banners, not NFC Championship banners. Then he turns around and says it's not that bad losing Super Bowl, and also stated at one point, I'm the owner, you can't fire me, in so many words. This is just a recap of the first few years. Y'all can definitely let me know what y'all think in the comments. For me personally, it's just a very big situation, for me to recap things, because a lot of the times what happens is people will, what I've noticed with Niner fans is they cherry pick. They don't look at things as a whole. They just look at the good. They don't look at the bad, because you want to forget the bad. And that's just kind of how life works. That's what you're taught. You don't want to remember or see the negative aspect of things, the bad side of things. You want to say to yourself, like, yo, I want to look at the good. I want to look at the positive. When it comes to sports, you kind of got to look at things as a whole. You have to see what people bring, what they give, what they don't give, and help them understand, what's actually going on here. And that's the thing for me. These first couple of years were very tumultuous. There was a lot of things going on. And once again, it just brings you back to the decision making. The first year, not choosing a quarterback, that's not a good decision. You know what I mean? Choosing a defensive end that everyone told you not to pick, but you still picked them. Like, these are things that just you can't do. Do you have a scouting department for a reason? 2018 being a dismal season, we just couldn't really do much of anything. 2019, that spark, the free agent pickups, everybody's seeing let's go to the Super Bowl, and then we take that L, and it's like, fuck, man, we wanted that one. 2020, the COVID year, hell, we got kicked out of our own state and wound up having to go to Arizona to play several of our games. Why? Because California was just like, no. And where did that come from? That was because there was an issue with none other than our illustrious owner, Jed York. And he was the guy who wound up having, a little bit of a problem with the city. And because he had that problem with the city, this is what goes on. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't believe me, like, really look it up. There were some things that went on. I'm not going to go all the way into it because that's just years ago, and there's no point to rehash that. I'll come back with another video of the next couple of years, all the way up until now, to be able to talk about that and, be able to have some positive light to shed on this, because the first couple of years, as you can see, we're not necessarily the best. Kyle being under 500 and John Lynch, not necessarily being the best in free agency. Like, these are all things, and you have to, I do understand that John Lynch at that time is learning. He's a new GM. He had never been a GM before. Hell, when he left his playing career, he went on the TV, and then after TV, Kyle called him and said, hey, you want to come be a GM? And he said, hell yeah. It's a little bit different when you look at it as far as that goes. So I am going to bring up a couple of things really quick. I did do a few polls on Twitter, just to, get in and make things, a little bit better than what they were. I do believe, let me try and do this, and the polls were very simple. It was, do you believe we can win a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan? And do you believe that our owner, Jed York, truthfully, wants to win a Super Bowl? Do we really think that he can do that? So if y'all give me just a moment, I'm going to try to hit my profile. There we go. And we'll bring some things up because I'm live right now. But I'll share my screen and share this right here to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about. And give me just a moment here. So we're going to present, and we'll share this tab. All right, so you guys can see that, and this one got way more votes. Obviously, this was, got 96 votes, and I put it up for I think about 3 days. It just says, "Do you believe Kyle Shanahan can win the Super Bowl with the Niners?" 69.8% of fans say yes. 30.2% of fans say no. So an overwhelming majority of this fan base has faith in the man that is only showing you he knows how to lose Super Bowls, that he can win it, that he can get the job done. He failed as an offensive coordinator in Atlanta. He's lost 2 Super Bowls with us. So for me personally, I'm just a little baffled at the fact that the fan base has watched that man lose 2 Super Bowls as a head coach, and they're still saying, yeah, he can get the job done. I think, and to me, I'll stick to this and I'll keep this. It's fans have been lulled into the situation of, hey, this is the best we've got. There isn't another head coach out there better than him. And I don't want to go back into purgatory. I don't want to wind up, going back to the dark days. And I don't want to go to Chip Kelly, Jim Tom Sula days, all that other stuff, Mike Singletary, whatever you want to call it. That's what fans will use as the excuse and reason that Kyle can get the job done, or the fact that we should not move on from him because they're very happy with the last couple of years, but they seem to have forgotten these first few years that I just talked about. So it's just like I asked that question, and I'm trying to wrap my head around where everybody's head is at to think that this guy can get the job done when he hasn't, and he's only shown you he doesn't know how to beat Patrick Mahomes, and that's who he seems to keep running up against in the Super Bowl, and it just kind of is what it is on that one. You just kind of deal with it and just keep moving. I have no idea why people really truthfully still believe in this guy, but me personally, I've lost all faith. He's been here long enough, and we still don't have a Super Bowl show for it, so it's kind of like whatever. And then the other one was, hey, do you believe our owner at, Jed York wants to win the Super Bowl or only cares about money? The fan base truthfully thinks that this man wants to win the Super Bowl. It's a 60-40, and there's only 30 votes. But at the end of the day, it still baffles me once again that 60% of these people believe that Jed York wants to win the Super Bowl when we haven't gotten the job done with him. And along with that, there's been things that he does that just show you that he doesn't care. He's raised season ticket prices the last several years. We ain't won the Super Bowl, but the hope and the false hope that Kyle Shanahan puts in a lot of fans, because you'll see him winning and going through the season, and you'll look at his total playoff record, and you'll look at the 2 Super Bowl appearances and the NFC Championship appearances, and that's all you'll look at and say, hey, he's great. And you'll forget about all of the losing seasons. You'll forget about, the helping out the homie that was a detriment to this team. It's, at times, all of the things that he's done, you seem to, neglect those and only focus on strictly just the positive. So these are the things that happen, and those are the polls that I had. I just wanted to show that to you guys and share that with you, that there's a lot of the fan base that truthfully feels that this guy can get the job done. And to me, it's a little frustrating because I try to take a look at it and go, okay, let's be optimistic about this. But I'm sorry, you get to the biggest game of your career, you fail twice. You get to the NFC Championship game, you have really bad fourth quarters. There are times where you can't get out of your own way. We had an article written where some GM in the league says that Kyle Shanahan is going to win 3 straight. The man has lost 3. One is an OC, 2 is a head coach, opposite of his daddy. His daddy is one is a offensive coordinator. The last one we won, and 2 is a head coach with the Denver Broncos and John Elway and those guys. So I just didn't understand, and I'd have to publicly apologize to Jeff Howe. I kind of put him on blast as if he was the one who said it, but he did not. This was something from a GM in the league that felt that, any talk of Kyle Shanahan being fired at this point was blasphemous and stupid because, it's like, why would you want to fire a head coach who's doing what he's done? But at the same time, you got to look at the full body of work and understand it, and there are just certain things that he's done that would have gotten other head coaches fired. And these are just facts. And I'm not out here to just, sit up here and just continually bash him, but I'm just telling you the truth of things. And I'm going to give it to you from a wide, perspective. And that's the thing. So honestly, when it comes down to it, you look at everything that he's done. And, like I said, these last couple of years, everybody's like, whoa, this is great. This past year right now was not good. It was ugly. Once again, the injury bug hit us and, Brock didn't look as great as everyone wanted him to look. But we've got a contract looming for him. We signed Jimmy G right away. We didn't even waste time. We didn't want teams to talk to him or nothing. They gave Jimmy G his money almost instantly after the season was over. They had him walking on the field, with the suit and the unbuttoned top button, and, just trying to be swagged out, and all those things, so we should be paying Brock now. A lot of people don't want to pay Brock. A lot of people don't want Brock to get, $60 million a year because they feel like, hey, that's not right. Here's the reality of it. Once again, I'm going to tell you the truth of it, not lies. Would you like to be able to pay Brock a little bit less to keep people around him, make sure that he's got the guys that he needs? Yes. Yes, you definitely would. You would love for Brock Purdy to want to take the Tom Brady approach. Here's the issue. Brock ain't in Tom Brady's situation. Tom Brady's situation was definitely different. The reason being is because Tom Brady had the situation where he had won Super Bowls. He had a head coach who was a killer, and kept his foot on the gas. He never let off of it. For him to have the career that he did, 6 Super Bowls with New England, 1 with Tampa Bay, and, go on to do, I think now he's with the Raiders and he's consulting for them. He's a minority owner. He had the luxury of being able to say, yeah, I'll take a little bit less money. I'll get my money elsewhere. Why? Because I want to win. I want to keep winning Super Bowls. I know money's going to come in. I know endorsements are going to stay around me. I know I'm going to be fine because I'm bringing Lombardis to this franchise. And that's the case. And since Tom Brady has left, they ain't done nothing. So when you say you don't want to pay Brock Purdy, I get it. But at the end of the day, he's going to get paid. Brock Purdy is probably going to be upwards of at least $50 million per year. I can guarantee at least 50. And that's the reason is because simply that is the market. That is the going rate. The top guys are getting paid around that much. You know what I'm saying? And not many of those dudes even have the resume that Brock has. Tua being paid. He ain't done nothing. Trevor Lawrence being paid. He ain't done nothing. Dak being paid. He ain't done nothing. Russ getting his money, he got it from Denver, but Russ basically did have 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win, and would have had 2 if he'd just said screw Pete Carroll and went ahead and gave the ball to beast mode, but that's a story for another day. But at the end of the day, it's just a situation of looking at things as a whole and understanding things from a wide perspective. Now, these next couple of years I bring you are going to be, what everybody wants to hear about, all of the positivity and everything like that. These first couple of years were a little rough, man. It wasn't a walk in the park. There were definitely some mistakes made, a lot of wasted draft picks. And it just, kind of begs the question of, what was going on. But either way, those things happened and it's in the past and we have to move forward. So we'll talk about the next couple of years here. Probably bring you that video either sometime later this week or maybe even today. Just got to do the research on it and take a look at it. But, just tells me that as a whole, John Lynch, you got to stay away from free agency or get better in it because some of these free agents are just And yeah, every now and then you get some camp bodies, guys just there. They're just there to fill spots. You want to see if you maybe can find a diamond in the rough, and then there are times where it's just like, bruh, this dude ain't it. Why'd you pick him up? What was the point? So those things happen. So for me, John Lynch, not too bad in the draft, subpar when it comes to free agency. For me, Kyle Shanahan, I need you to get and stay above 500. I think he is now currently above 500 still for his career as a head coach. Unfortunately, he has set the record for, the most losses as a head coach for the San Francisco 49ers. He took that record from Bill Walsh. But Walsh wound up having 3 Super Bowl wins. I apologize for. So that's different. And these are just things that go on. It's just these things happen. This is how franchises work. This is football. This is a sport, and it is what it is. But you want to win. You want to be the best. You want to have great seasons. You want to be able to get to the Super Bowl. You want to continue to contend. And it doesn't. When people give me that overwhelming response that they think Kyle can do it, for me, my only come back to that is he's only showing you he hasn't. So how do you have faith that he can? It's just a little confusing. So it kind of is what it is. But, these next couple of years will be good outside of this this past year was bad. Hopefully we get Brock re-signed. I know, once again, people don't want to give him, they don't want the franchise to give him that big money. But I don't think his agent is going to let him take, anything less than $50 million. I think there was a report stating that he wanted about 55 at a minimum. So hopefully this contract stuff gets done early and before the draft. I don't want to go into OTAs. I don't want to head anywhere near training camp without having the starting QB on the field, practicing, doing what he needs to do. Because this past year we had Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, and CMC all hold out because they all wanted money. Everybody got paid, but at the end of the day, it took too long. And CMC wound up having Achilles tendonitis in both legs. He barely played this year. And then when he did, I think the last time we saw him was in Buffalo. And I think that was a PCL strain. So now we got to hope this year that he can come back and be the same guy that he was. Trent Williams wanted to make sure he had some guaranteed money because basically he would have just been playing his contract and not had anything guaranteed. We had some tumultuous things happen within the franchise as far as Mooney Ward and Trent Williams both losing children. My heart and my prayers go out to them. That's definitely something I've never experienced and don't want to experience. It's the worst thing in the world. But there are certain things that happen, when it comes down to it. So it's rough. But we're going to try to find a way out and make it through, and hopefully things get better. I do want us to win. I do want this franchise to prosper, and I would love to see us going forward, put more of an effort on being better, being smarter, being stronger, and giving it everything we've got and making better choices. The current issue right now that we have is we are waiting on Robert Saleh as our defensive coordinator. And to me, that's another point on Kyle that I'll touch on is he's very stagnant. He doesn't want to change. He likes what he knows, and he doesn't want to try to force himself to evolve. And you picking up Robert Saleh is just going right back to the well. It's the same defense that we had before. And my thing is that same defense, unfortunately, has not been doing very well as of late. We got killed in the run game this year. There's lots of things that I could say as far as just the defensive scheme. I know these guys know it. I know the players would love to have Saleh back. I know as fans, we love Saleh. We love what he did for us in the time that he was here. But basically, Jeff Ulbrich wound up signing with the Falcons as their defensive coordinator, and we were waiting out on him too. So he's gone. So the longer we wait on Saleh, the more the possible defensive coordinator options that we have dwindle down. And if we wind up, what happens if Robert Saleh takes a head coaching job and there are no other options? We're going to have to take another guy that has no defensive coordinator experience and put him out there. Or they're going to screw up and sign Brandon Staley, and we all know how horrible he is. So it's just there are times where this is why I don't believe in Kyle, because he'll put you in a bind, and there will be things that will happen. So it's just frustrating, but it kind of is what it is on that. I'm not going to sit here and harp on it. It just, you got to deal with it. These are things that go along with it. And, while I love this team and I love reporting on it, I look at things from a different perspective. I can't keep trusting a guy who fails you or shows you that that's not what he's going to do. He's doing something different than what he says. So at the end of the day, we just kind of got to deal with it, keep going. I do hope that, if we don't make another Super Bowl, I do hope that Jed looks at that and says, okay, well, am I supposed to continue with this guy because he keeps money in my pocket, he keeps butts in seats, and he keeps hope alive to an extent? Or do I want to say, It's been, 12 years. It's time to move the hell on. There's no Super Bowls that have come out of it. We had a couple of nice runs a few years here and there, but at the end of the day, you've got to deliver. And a lot of people will compare, Kyle to like Andy Reid when he was in Philly, doing as good of a job as he can, but he just couldn't get over the hump. Jeffrey Lurie eventually said, "You got to go," and he went on. And Doug Peterson came in and won a Super Bowl. Andy Reid went off to Kansas City. He did not immediately win, and it wasn't until he got Patrick Mahomes that he wound up winning his first Super Bowl. And for me, I'm like, I don't know. Kyle's not a quarterback whisperer. And, there are just times where he's gets in his own way, really bad in the fourth quarter, really bad when he's down by double digits. There's a lot of things that go on, finds a way sometimes still to be in the top 10 in the league when it comes to his offenses. At times, even when he's having bad seasons sometimes. So, there's good, bad, and ugly from Kyle. And you just kind of got to take it all with a grain of salt and deal with it because he's going to be here for years to come. And does that make me happy? Not necessarily, because I think we should move on and try to find a new coach that can actually get us to the promised land and get us over the hump. But either way, if it doesn't, work out like that, and we got to stick with him, just got to stick with him. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, hanging out with your boy. This was just, like I said, the first few years of this regime with Jed, John, and Kyle, and we'll do the next 4 years, and those will have some more positive things to them, and definitely a better light to shine on things. But thank y'all so much for tuning in, hanging out with your boy. I appreciate y'all. Everybody stay up, stay faithful, be blessed. Peace.